We have just an exciting podcast for you today. And we are on our second one. It's a double header. Isn't that nice? So, as always, we've got a really nice podcast talking about someone that, in my eyes, is a hero, someone that's been through a whole lot and got to the other side of their healing and trauma. And so today we're going to explore the frontiers of health, healing, and human potential. God's given us the ability to reach our human potential, but are we listening? Are we doing things that we could be doing to enhance this? I'm your host, John Baxter. This is the Baxter Effect, and we're going to be talking about something that affects millions of people, likely doesn't really get talked about a lot, and that's traumatic brain injury, holistic healing, and your mindset to push you across and reach some of your biggest goals. So today's podcast, we have Stephanie Mcduffie Freeman. She's out of Georgia. She's a beautiful soul. She embodies this resilience, passion, and dedication to not only helping herself, but helping many people along her journey. She's a massage therapist, wellness coach, and brain injury advocate. Just amazing. So without much more, I would like to bring Stephanie on and have a real conversation and get to know this woman, because I think she will inspire many people out there. So I'm going to bring her on right now. And there we have it. We have Stephanie. Hey, Stephanie.
Thank you. Hello.
Thank you for being on the show. And having you on was important for me because I wanted to, showcase like what possibly wrong could go, and in so many ways you could come out somewhat just on top at a different level. So if you could, let us know a little bit about you and kind of where your journey started a little bit and where you're at now.
Certainly. I'd love to. I'm Stephanie Freeman and I'm from Georgia. I'm in Middle Georgia right now. My story, but first let me say, I always start this with our life is subject to a change at every moment. And my story, if I get a little shaky, I'm sorry. My story started on June the 4th of 1993. And one moment, I'm walking out of my parents' home to go and hang out with friends. And the next moment that I remember is 2 months later, waking up in a wheelchair in a hospital. I was sitting in a wheelchair in a hospital hallway of Albany, Georgia, if you've heard of it. And I had my head hanging down. I had spit rolling out of my mouth. And I lifted my head. I looked to one side and I looked to the other side. And there were people, older people sitting there. And there was something inside of me said, Stephanie, get up. What are you doing? So I did. I tried to do just that. I unbelted that wheelchair, that belt on my wheelchair, and I proceeded to get up. In that moment, I fell to my knees. It was a very humiliating moment because I realized that I could no longer walk. I had no idea that I had been in a coma for 2 months prior to that moment. So I say that was a very humiliating moment for me, but it was an extremely defining moment for my life because, it really, I couldn't deal with that, not being able to do these things. And that voice inside of me said, you can do this. So I made a decision for my life that day on my knees at that hospital floor. I decided I was not going out like that. And I did not. 2 months later, I walked out of that hospital. And my journey, I mean, it's not a linear journey. It's been up and down through the years. That's what brain injury is. No injury is the same. And I've had a very successful recovery from my injury. But when I got home from the hospital, I just continued my therapy. It was 1993. We didn't have the big therapy that we have today. And I just continued being active. And all of my life, I always had that anxious feeling, and I just thought it was normal. And whenever I would want to fight that feeling, I would be active, I would walk. And then eventually I started running and running marathons. And I want to say in 2013, so today, let me go back. Today, I am a massage therapist, and my journey has been I've been in the fitness industry. I've been, throughout a lot of different industries. And in 2013, I'm also running the nonprofit Share Your Strong. In 2013, I was in Boston, Massachusetts. And I wasn't running the marathon that year. I was only working with a shoe company that I worked with online. And I was working in the expo, and then our team walked down to get pizza. And this was April the 15th of 2013. You might remember this. This was the Boston Marathon bombings. And we walked down to get pizza. We were in the Sheraton Mall, and we were sitting there eating, and we heard a big boom, and everybody looked around, didn't know what it was. It sounded like cars hitting together. And then 10 seconds later, we heard something. It sounded like an airplane hitting the building. So the whole mall stampeded, and we ran outside, and the SWAT team was coming out of the sky, and we were on lockdown for the whole night. And I flew back to Georgia the next day. And when I got back to Georgia, this was 20 years after my accident. And like I said, I had a successful recovery and had dealt with things well. And I didn't really, all the nervousness and anxiety and stuff I thought was normal. Well, 2013, that day, when I flew back to Georgia, I started having PTSD symptoms. When I would sleep, I would have bad dreams, and my dreams were always of that hospital. And what I say is, this was life telling me, you just can't forget about these things. You can't just keep moving on. So I got through that. And I got through that through running and writing. I started a running blog, and I'll never forget it. It was called Stephanie Chasing Boston, because I was trying to qualify for Boston. And I was writing and running, and I got through it. It took about exactly 3 months. And I was doing some modeling in Atlanta at that time. And a I got a contract for a tennis wear company in Atlanta, in Woodstock, Georgia. And the family that owned the company, they were taking the pictures and everything. So I was up in Woodstock, and we were doing the pictures on a tennis court. And the dad, was taking the pictures. He receives a call from his wife, and his wife wanted him to come home. So he was really aggravated. He was like, okay, you go up to Starbucks, and I'll be back by to get you in 30 minutes. So I did. I went up to Starbucks, and I was just on cloud nine, ego a mile wide. And then 30 minutes later, he pulls up, and I bebop out to his car, and I get in the seat, and he's sitting in the driver's seat, and he's fussing and about things. And then I turn around, and I look in the back seat, and there was an 8-year-old boy sitting in the back seat. And this is going to make me cry. He had his head hanging down. He had spit rolling out of his mouth from a brain injury. And that was the exact memory that I had when I came to in the hospital, sitting in that wheelchair. And he had had a brain injury. He had an injury from, I can't remember, but I reached over, and his dad was fussing and cussing, and he had no idea my story. He didn't know who I was. And I reached over, and I grabbed his hand, and I said, I know this situation way deeper than you know. So I calmed him in that moment. And that, to me, I say, was God speaking. You've got to do something with this. So that moment on the floor in 1993, let me go back to that. That has been a divine moment for me, because it's led me to a purpose. With my Share Strong, I reach out. I've had the honor of connecting with people worldwide that's gone through the same things that I've gone through when I was going through those hard moments. And I didn't, know this was unnormal, those anxious moments. And I've been able to be there for these people. And not only that, I've traveled to Washington, D.C. on Congressional Brain Injury Awareness Day and advocated for my state, for Georgia, at Capitol Hill. And in 2022, I was asked to be a part of the state of Georgia. So I sit on the board of the Brain and Spinal Cord Injury Trust Fund with Georgia. So I've allowed that injury, instead of taking me down, I've allowed it to push me forward. Even through those hard moments, I've allowed that. I stayed strong to that image that I saw in 1993. That humiliating moment has driven me all of my life.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's the adversity and challenges and these different things. You stay strong. What a perfect name, right?
Right.
It's beautiful that you shared that with us. That someone out there could be going through a lot of stuff, and maybe someone out there is going through a traumatic brain injury as well. I know a lot of NFL players that might have a little bit of it, right?
Yes.
There's just so many people that are affected, millions of people that are affected, but it's not really spoken about a whole lot. So I'm just so grateful to have you on here today and to cover this amazing story, this pain to purpose story where God's involved at every moment where something pops up, and I guess these defining moments, you were able to bring in the courage and maybe speak to your soul's urge. I'm not sure. Could you tell us a little bit of like the process that you had to go through? Like I it's something that you can't really conceive. Like, how do you go from falling off of a chair to being strong enough to do all this stuff?
As I said, I've had a remarkable recovery because a lot of the people I've connected with through these 10, 12 years, they were not that lucky. But my recovery, I stayed within. I've had faith so strong I could stand on it, first of all. And just that moment, that defining moment, I allowed it to. I see the hand of God in it every day of my life, and I feel it more to push me instead of pull me. And remaining active has helped me through my recovery. Being active, I would say, is the number one thing for me. Well, because it's helped me mentally. I didn't depend on medications. I'm not against medications, of course, some need it, but I didn't want to rely on that. So I relied on being active and massage, reflexology, meditation, prayer, things like that to help me through. And I encourage people that I come in contact with to do the same thing. I want to be that presence for them to show that it is possible.
Yeah, it appears you didn't let the worst case scenario define you. You defined it, and that's really the story, because like that's where so many of us find ourselves. Sometimes it's so bad that there's probably nothing likely that anyone could do. But also, as you went through these challenges, um, could you cover some of the practical steps that someone could take, if they wanted to learn more, or practical steps that someone could take if they find themselves in such a situation?
Yes, I certainly can. You can reach out, of course, to me, or I would say your Brain Injury Association. Never, I mean, people, and I'm speaking for myself, we go through these moments, these depressive moments, dark nights of the soul, and we feel like there's no one around us. Brain injury sometimes can make you feel paranoid, can make you feel paranoia, really. And my advice would be to reach out, always reach out to someone you love, to someone you care for, to help you through those moments. don't see an end to any of it. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Whether you see it or not, it's there.
And could you break down like some of the stuff you do? And you covered like you're a massage therapist. You do this. Could you cover like any of the a proper brain injury like diet or your diet, or what is your daily routine that you do to stay this fit at, all these years for all these years?
As I said, I stay as active. I've gone from, I mean, I was running marathons until I got older. Now I'm 46, but I don't do marathons anymore, but I do stay as active as possible. And I'm more so in the yoga community now and doing more yoga. My diet has always been really, I've always had a lot of discipline in my life. That's one thing that I'm very proud of. And discipline with my eating, I can remember in my 20s before any of this really come to me, my awakening, I was still as, I hate to say, to anal about my eating. I just would not put just anything in my mouth. I've always been very cautious of what I eat, what I drink. And another thing that's really important, especially with brain injury, I don't know if you're familiar with epigenetics. It's the surrounding, the people you surround yourself with can identify yourself. So watch who you're around, who you allow into your space is a big thing for me. I mean, I try to teach this to a lot of the kids that I meet with.
Oh yeah, that's got to be an important part of everything, right? If the relationships or the energy around is toxic,
Hmm.
likely you're not going to get any better. You're
Right.
you're in a spiral pattern, and so many people are out there in a situation like a less than ideal situation, and it's actually preventing them from probably even healing at the rate they should be. There could be stress, anxiety, and
There's
that's an important
always.
topic.
Yes. And I want to tell you this story one before we stop. I remember meeting with, and I've actually met with a lot of kids. I remember meeting with some kids on the adolescent floor. I was going into the Shepherd Center before COVID, and I had some children that I'd gotten really close to, and I remember them crying to me that they didn't fit in anymore. They didn't, everything was different with them. And my advice to these children, and is I can see my younger self as I say this, so I'm speaking it to her, is once you go through a life altering event like a brain injury, spinal cord injury, what a traumatic event, you are processing on a higher level of mind than a lot of the people around you. And it's hard for us after an injury, a trauma such as that, to understand that. So there you go with the surroundings, keeping, the people, be mindful of who you're around because not everyone understands life the way you do. But what I always tell them is, you see life in such a better, special level at this point.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. And one of the things I wanted to cover was like your advocacy, your nonprofit. I know in the state of Georgia, you've done lots of stuff, but I found you on the internet sharing your story, of
Yeah.
course. So, if you could cover a little bit about your nonprofit and like where to find you, what you're up to, what kind of services you're offering. If you could cover a couple topics like that, it would be great.
I Share Your Strong is my nonprofit. So what I do is I share my strong. I speak online and I do peer visiting. I've done support groups. I've raised money for people and you can reach me. I'm Stephanie Mcduffie Freeman on Facebook and I'm Share Your Strong on Facebook as well. And then TikTok Share Your Strong 1, I think is what I am. And and Share Your Strong on Instagram. But my advocacy work has really been just voicing myself, sharing my strength to the world. And when I started doing this, it was not a TikTok, it wasn't everything. It took a lot of courage for me to shine my light. It's been really difficult at times, but pushing through and sharing my strength in videos. And I like to incorporate my yoga videos in with it because there's a lot of relevance with it. You're shedding a lot of things that you're going through. It's just like being active. But I do a lot of advocacy work everywhere.
It's so important because it's literally, I think it's one of the most important because here you are, just someone on the internet, social media, you're
Yeah.
scrolling through something and actually maybe this is the story someone needed all along, right? That's the way I see it. And if someone had that story of hope, a story that literally you could get through this. That's why I wanted you on this show because of the inspiration from doing all this that I saw, and people were basically super thankful and grateful for what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll always take a listen to people when I run across people online. So I'm there if you need me, or you can reach out personally to me on those spaces I gave.
Yeah. So, how does someone find you, Stephanie, if they're interested in your services or what you do?
My website is shareyourstrong.org, and it's in reconstruction at the moment. But shareyourstrong.org or Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I'm everywhere. Try to be.
Well, I wanted to thank you for joining the show today. It's we got a little bit of time left, and I thought it was excellent that you agreed to be on the show to share the story. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to unveil the truth for everyone and pull back the curtains on reality on so many different levels. We talk about politics, economy, healthcare, advanced technologies. These are the types of things we talk about because a lot of times these are the types of things that people are really needing. They really they might find themselves confused, lost, this type of thing. And if we could just get our story out, that this world makes a lot more sense, I believe. And so
Right.
that's why we did the show, and I'm just so grateful that I had you on today. Is
Well,
there any
thank you
last
so
thing
much.
you want to say?
I'm grateful because I like to help people see their trauma, their healing through different eyes than what we normally are accustomed to. So I appreciate you allowing me to do this.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. I look forward to possibly doing another show here with you. Just had a really good time, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Until next time. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
So there we have it. Had another all-star lineup here. People that have been going through a lot of stuff, and the amazing recovery, the hope, the strength in her sense, staying strong, never giving up. These are oftentimes what you find in people that have been through some of the most worst things and that you could ever possibly imagine. So I'd like to bring it up to our sponsor, Anti-Aging Bed, another company, a technology that can help assist people when they feel down and out. Things don't make sense. Nothing they're hearing is making sense. Maybe they're not getting the relief they need or should be having. Thank you to our sponsor, Anti-Aging Bed, for allowing me to promote this information out to the public because it's just so important, guys. We find ourselves at this juncture in history. Things are changing very fast, and at the forefront, what we'll see is that high-end advanced technologies. A lot of these technologies that have been forgotten or censored. These types of things are making the way to the forefront. So that forefront is you, and I wanted to thank you again for joining this show. Please like, comment, share, post in the comments. You want to learn more how to get involved? Type in Baxter in the comments, and someone will reach out to you. If you want to know more, check in our comment section below. Click on the links. You'll find out more about us. You can always visit thebaxtereffect.com. We are streaming on the different platforms, including Apple, Spotify, and quite a few others. So we've got a good clip out there, guys, and I want to keep this thing going. So your voice matters here. We appreciate all that you do. And until next time, thank you guys so much for joining the Baxter Effect. And I promise you more really great stories to share with everyone at home. Thank you guys so much. And until next time.